Hey everyone, Perry at Right to Bear, and today we have a special guest here to talk about a self-defense incident that he had. Obviously, we always talk about what Right to Bear offers, what we do, and why we exist. And we have a great opportunity to learn more about why that is. And so we have a great friend of mine, Justin, here to talk about an encounter, an incident that he had. And it was life-changing when he told me the first time, and I begged him. I said, man, we got to tell the masses about this. And one of the great things that you just shared with me was using your story to help somebody else down the road. And so thanks for being with me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it's really cool. So let's go back in time to the incident. What was happening in your life, and then let's talk about kind of the experience and the atmosphere, and just start from the top. I'd love to rehear it.
Yeah, so I'm in this industry, I'll say that.
Yeah.
My employer at the time, we were just getting started as a business, and a very, very large business at that.
Yeah.
And so we had just opened. It was a Friday or Saturday the week before Easter, and been working open to close, 7 days a week.
Yep.
It's ants holding hands together. And I was leaving work this night, and Friday, Saturday night, called my wife as soon as I got in the car and was like, hey, on the way home, you want to go get some dinner tonight? I could really use just getting out of the house for a little bit, And she's like, yeah, where do you want to go? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, let's just kind of think about it while I'm on the drive home. And, I didn't realize that, my life was going to completely change in the next 10 to 15 minutes. So I hung up the phone. I went over to a gas station that was pretty close to where I work.
Okay.
I'm not one to litter, so the floorboard of my car had become somewhat of a trash receptacle for
As many of it does, yeah.
Caffeine, lots of caffeine. And so while I was at this gas station, I figured, I would just kind of throw a couple things away. I ended up getting into an altercation with the guy in the parking lot.
So was this somebody that was just walking around, or he was pumping gas next to you? Or?
No, he parked in the space beside me. So when I pulled into the front of the building, there was no one parked there. And so I was like, well, this is a good opportunity. I can kind of leave my door cracked a little bit to get some of this trash out of my car. And so I was kind of gathering things, and kind of halfway in, halfway out, my head's down, and you never know when things like this are going to happen, right?
Yeah. So my next question was going to be, when was the oh crap button? It's things are happening.
So I was going towards the trash can. This guy was kind of a little jacked up, and he ended up just kind of running at me, grabbing me, throwing me into the side of a building, had me pinned there, was hollering, screaming at me. And to quote one of the witnesses that was pumping gas, it was large male versus small male.
Yeah.
So I'll let you kind of decide which one I was in the equation.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was, so you're grabbing something out of your car, and next thing you know, you're getting strangled and pinned up on the wall. I mean, was it a carjacking? Do you even know the intention behind it?
So I did find out later through toxicology he was on human growth hormone and amphetamines.
Oh wow, yeah, that'll do it.
I remember the look of rage on the guy's face shortly before he ran at me. He was probably 10 feet away, and for years, you hear that people can cover that distance in, less than a blink of an eye, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So I remember he was hollering and screaming at me, every curse word under the sun, and I'm in a state of shock. So I remember, like I'm looking down. They say you never look an attacker in the eyes, and you don't. You're so taken off guard by this, violent event that, I was like looking down like this as I'm just getting manhandled into the side of the wall. I was hitting that wall so hard that same witness that was pumping gas could hear my body bouncing off the side of the wall.
So they were just jacking you up.
And I remember thinking in the back of my mind, like I can't believe I'm getting ready to do this. Like I never thought it. I thought always, like, if I was involved in a self-defense shooting, it's going to be in my home, middle of the night. I'm going to hear glass break,
Yeah.
come downstairs, find an intruder in my living room, and then things are going to, proceed
just
from there.
I think that your thought process follows the majority of Americans, is they think that, okay, I'm sleeping, the glass breaks, I go downstairs and there's a guy with a crowbar and a ski mask on, and now I'm open fire, right? But very rarely does it happen that way.
I tell I make this analogy with my students. I'm a concealed carry instructor. I tell them, nobody sends their kid to school one morning knowing that there's going to be an active shooter.
Yeah.
Right? All the stories you see on the evening news, these horrible things that happen to other people, no one got up that morning knowing what was getting ready to happen, and they walked right into what their destiny was.
Yeah.
And that's kind of me in this moment.
So at that point, before we dive into it more, had you ever done any self-defense training yourself? Had you,
Years.
watched any?
Years.
So you have had years. So you got the upper hand now because you've had years of training. You're in the industry. You've probably been teaching on what to do if this happens, and now you're thrust into having to act on what you've been teaching.
So I had time dilation. So I've seen it in real speed. What was all of about 3 seconds seemed like minutes. So I remember thinking in the back of my head, the 3 reasons I'm allowed to use lethal force where I live are, imminent threat of serious bodily harm. So my brain goes check. Imminent threat of death. My brain went to, as violent as this guy is, he could pull out a knife right now and stab me in the abdomen. If I fall to the ground, he just starts like kicking on me. I'm not gonna be able to defend myself anymore.
Yep.
So this is kind of my last chance to be able to take action.
Yeah.
And then the third reason is rape. And so I was like, well, I got 2 out of the 3.
Yeah,
I wasn't worried about the third one.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I cannot believe I'm getting ready to do this. And I remember he slammed me one solid time again into the wall, and I just flipped the switch, go. I was wearing a jacket. I was carrying outside the waistline, so I just threw my jacket, cleared the clothing, established the dominant grip on my handgun. As soon as I did, he said, "Oh, pardon the French, but that's what he said."
No, yeah.
He started going for my gun at the same time too. So I got the gun up and out of the holster and set it on my body. He's got both hands on the gun, trying to get the gun away from me. So now there's this tug of war going on with someone. The police told me, because I couldn't tell you what he looked like to save my life now. You stood no physical chance against this guy.
Yeah.
They're like, he looked like he spent every day in the gym, you had no chance. I've also now got tunnel vision. So all I can see is the top of my slide. And now there's this tug of war going on for the gun. I remember thinking, all right, so I know like somewhere generally out this direction, and I can't see them anymore, and I think a lot of people don't think enough about this in concealed carry, is the bystanders that are around me. So I know there's like people pumping gas somewhere generally over here. I know there's a car wash somewhere generally over there. And so I'm looking down at my slide and my muzzle, and I can see his torso right here in front of me. And I'm like, I have to get the muzzle on him. Like, I have to get the muzzle. And right now my gun is kind of pointed in between, borderline in between the two of us. So I had this feeling of like, like if you're doing an arm wrestling match with somebody, like you feel you're getting ready to lose it, and then you do.
Yeah.
I felt like I was getting ready to lose it. And I must have had the full adrenaline dump or something, grandma lifts car off grandchild type of thing. And I just overpowered him. Instead of moving my arms, I just swung my entire body to bring the muzzle into his stomach. I've got to get a round off.
Yeah.
Brought it in the center of his stomach, fired one round. He made the most unusual guttural noise I've never heard a human being make.
Wow.
He doubled over. As soon as he doubled over, sorry, it's a little emotional too.
No, please.
I immediately looked at his back to see if there was an exit wound. Again, not so much for me and my altercation with him, but the innocent bystanders that are,
correct,
down range of where I'm pointing. There was no exit wound on his back, so it stayed in him. It's surprising for a 9mm hollow point at point blank range. So good job, ammo manufacturer that designed that hollow point.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
Did the right trick. He then stood up holding his abdomen. There was no blood. I thought that was weird. Post-event, though, I kind of found out from some doctors why that was probably the case. He started walking away from me, so I'd taken a step back, you know, create distance, right up.
Yeah.
Stop the threat in the moment, he's off of me,
Yeah.
you know. So step back, create distance, but watching, because he could turn around and pull a gun himself or a weapon or something, I don't know.
That's right.
So he started staggering away, and I'm like, where's this guy going, right?
Yeah.
You know? And he just kept staggering away and telling people it was pumping gas, that he'd been shot, but I think they were aware of that.
Yeah.
I had full auditory exclusion, so I never heard the gunshot. My ears didn't ring, but I had a coworker who lived a couple of miles away. She heard the gun report that night, not knowing it was going to be somebody she'd know in the future.
Yeah.
And so he leaves the immediate area. I'm really in a state of shock now, right? So I've been violently attacked. I've just had to shoot another human being. I'm a Christian. I don't want to ever have to kill anybody.
Correct.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think all of us are that way.
Yeah.
But it just boils down to what I tell my students. Someone put you in a situation where you were given no other choice.
Correct.
So
I want to talk about the people that were at the gas station. Okay. So, and I know maybe not in that moment you didn't realize it, but after the fact. So there were witnesses around the incident that were watching you get slammed. They may have seen you take the shot. They watched the tussle. Did you ever get an opportunity to speak to any of those individuals? Nope.
I did get to read some of their police reports about probably a year and a half, 2 years later. I really didn't want to. I tried to kind of heal from the experience mentally first.
Yeah.
But a year or two later, I did, through the victims assistance unit, I was able to see some of the witness statements as well as some of the surveillance video. That was the other huge blessing, is that everything was caught on tape.
So that's incredible. So you were saying, I mean, you're fully in the zone. You're in shock, but your adrenaline's pumping. I mean, you are locked in as you've ever been. How long did the whole incident, from the time you were grabbed to thrust on the wall till gun was shot till attacker walked away, what was the actual time? Probably felt like a million years for you, but what was the actual time frame?
I would say from the moment the attack started to the time my firearm discharged, 3.5 seconds, something like that, right around 3 seconds from watching the surveillance video. It took him probably another 45 seconds or so to walk across the parking lot to where he then left my sight by going down a hill. And it's a pretty deep parking lot. So he walked probably a good solid 25, 35 yards, something like that, away from me.
So go back to where now attacker's walking away, you're in full shock. So then what happens next in the story?
So my mind's in a bit of a blank state at that moment. And the first thing that dawned is like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
You know, seriously.
No,
it's like, what do I do next?
That's the coined question is, I was just involved, whether it's at the gas station or at your home, and what happens next.
What do I do next?
So you've been teaching, so your level of expertise is superior to the average bystander. And that's why, again, I'm so grateful that you're able to share this to the masses, because that's part of the process, is educating people on what to do. Because, I mean, golly, if that happened to myself or one of my family members, I honestly, I don't know how I would have responded.
So my first thought was, someone needs to call 911, you know? So I went inside of the gas station. The clerk there was already on the phone, and I remember saying to him, call 911, but he's already at the glass, like looking out. So I think he was already aware of something was definitely going on, and I think he was already talking to 911. But I might as well have been like Kevin Bacon and like the Invisible Man. Like, it's like I didn't even exist when I walked in the door. He didn't look at me or anything.
Oh my gosh.
So I stepped back outside and I'm like, I guess I need to dial 911, you know, and as an instructor, I know everything I'm getting ready to say is going to be recorded. So I immediately knew, I was like, I was in a state of shock, and I was like, you have to be careful in what you say and how you say it.
Absolutely.
You know, tell the truth. It's all going to come out on video. That's a hard telephone call. So I dialed 911. The operator picked up and said, 911, you know, where's your emergency? And I told her something along the lines of, you know, I was just violently attacked, and I had to use my firearm to defend myself.
Yeah.
And she said, has someone been shot? I said, yes. She said, are they dead? I said, no. She says, are they there? I said, no. She's like, okay. She said, I've got police and EMS headed your way. Stay on the line with me. Don't hang up. And, you know, now I have two paths.
Yeah.
Right. Prior to this event, I'd had coverage from another company, and I was paying about $30 a month for it.
Yeah.
You know, there's times in life where you start learning that how can I lean the budget? You know,
Yeah.
now with a baby girl, like, you know, my wife and I are doing that now too.
Yeah.
But you know, it was one of those things like $30 a month. Like what are the odds I'm really going to need it? You know, and it's like every other type of insurance. You don't need it till your house burns down.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so I canceled it. So I had no other option but to really just stay on the line with the 911 operator.
Wow.
You know, and that's when I started to hear like police sirens and every type of electronic siren from every type of division of first responder you can imagine, like diverging in on my location, and you know you can hear them like coming from all directions.
Yep.
I'm on the line with 911, and I couldn't tell you how that conversation went. I don't remember.
Wow.
A guy came around from the side of the building. And after my firearm discharged, and the guy had left the scene, I turned around and I looked at the ground, and everything I'd been carrying in my hands is scattered all over the ground, including the magazine from my gun, and the guy's keys. So, you know, for years I've heard, you know, tough guys say, well, I got time to rack around, and, you know, I got this covered. And, you know, I use this as an example for my concealed carry class to say, you know, you're not going to have time.
No.
Or the forethought.
3.5 seconds, right? 4 seconds, all this slam.
And his
boom.
hands on the gun.
Man.
So I only had the one round.
Wow.
That was a surprise to see my magazine laying on the ground. Oh, that's surprising. You know,
you talk about God being a part of a situation.
Yeah. The guy's keys were on the ground. So I was like, even though he's walked away, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
This guy comes from around the side of the building. He says, have you seen that guy's keys anywhere? I said, well, yeah, they're right there on the ground. He goes, okay, great. He picked them up and walked back around the corner of the building. I was like, I told the operator, I was like, some guy just picked up the guy's keys. She go, who was it? I was like, I don't know. The other nice thing is the operator says, where are you? I'm like, I'm at this gas station, and where I was, you know, kind of describing the general area. She's like, what's the address? I'm like, I don't know what the address is here. You know, like, I'm in a state of shock. I'm like, even if I knew, I probably couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you what my address is right now. So the guy walked around the side of the building with the guy's keys, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. Still talking to the operator, and next thing I hear is this guy's car engine start. And I'm like, I'm not a crime scene expert or anything, but I'm pretty sure that's evidence.
Yeah.
I know they're going to search my car.
Yeah.
And this guy leaves, right before the police get there. And I know how the next part's going to go down too. The arrival of police on the scene.
Oh, chaos.
Yeah. So I've already, reholstered my gun, so my hands are clear. When the police pull into the parking lot, I wave to get their attention. 2 reasons. Bad guys never wave. Over here, police, I need help. I'm a victim. I need help. The other thing is they just know somebody's been shot. They know no other piece of information.
Yep.
They can see my hands. So they come in.
This is valuable information.
They take defensive positions. They get out of their car with their guns drawn, not pointed at me.
Yeah.
They said, keep your hands in the air. I said, yes, sir. They said, turn around. I said, yes, sir. They said, walk towards us. And I started to turn and walk, walking forward. They yell. They're like, walk backwards. I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen enough episodes of Cops. I know what you're talking about. Walk backwards. So I walk back. They come up behind me. They said, we're going to come up behind you. I was like, I understand. I also know too, like, I'm going to comply and just go along with whatever they want me to do.
Yep.
I'm at their will.
Yep.
So they said, we're going to cuff you. I said, yes, sir, I understand. They're like, give me your right hand. I said, yes, sir. They cuffed me. They give me your left hand. Yes, sir. They cuffed me in the back. They said, are you still armed? I said, yes, sir. They said, where is it? I said, outside the waistband on my right-hand side. They said, we're going to get the gun and clear it. I said, yes, sir, I understand. So they got the gun, cleared it, put it up on the hood of one of their cars. And they said, all right, we're going to set you, like, you're not under arrest, but we're going to sit you down for a second just so we can kind of figure out what's going on. And so they put me in the back of a squad car. So to give you where I was emotionally in this moment, I've been violently attacked. I just had to shoot another human being.
Jeez.
Now I'm in handcuffs in the back of a squad car on a hard vinyl seat that my mind's like, all I can think of is all the bodily fluids that have been on that seat in the past, and the reason why they made it out of a material that was non-porous so they could just wipe it down with Lysol and clean it. You want to talk about an alone feeling in the world is being in that moment. I've never felt so alone in my entire life.
Man.
Like, I don't have a friend in the world right now. There's nobody here to help me or be my advocate. I'm my advocate now.
And so you having these feelings of loneliness, is there anything else spinning through your mind? Is it like, oh my God, like my wife is going to freak when she finds out this happens? Or I'm still just complete spinning on, holy cow, somebody just tried to attack me?
By now, some length of time has gone by, and I know it's going to be a lot more lengthy.
Yeah.
And I wanted somebody to please call my wife.
Yeah.
They've obviously taken everything from me now. They've cleared my pockets, my cell phone, everything. I have nothing, just me and myself in the back of the squad car. So I start trying to, I know the next thing they're going to do, they ask me, can we search your car? I'm like, yes. They're going to get a warrant anyway. So don't make their life difficult. Just tell them yes.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything in there to hide. So I also know they're going to start playing the good cop, bad cop thing.
Yeah.
They're going to start asking me what happened. They're going to send another officer to me and ask me what happened. So in this process, I'm trying to tell the officers, can someone please call my wife? They said, sir, we can't do that. I said, can someone please call my wife?
Yeah.
Again, it's like I'm in the back of my mind, I'm complying with everything you want me to do.
Yeah.
Can you please just call my wife and tell her what's going on?
Yep.
They do that. They send multiple cops to me and ask me what happened. And I tell them, the full story of, what happened from the moment I pulled in the parking lot to, where I am now in the back.
So I want to pause and change gears for a second. What do you teach your students in that moment, having now lived through it?
You're in no state of mind to talk to the police.
Yep.
I was very blessed in my situation with the amount of training and being a concealed carry instructor I knew how to talk to the police.
Yep.
No one should be talking to the police. And if there's proof evident in it, even the police won't talk to themselves if another officer is involved in a self-defense shooting. They're not allowed to even talk to that officer for like 2 or 3 sleep cycles. So we're talking 48, 72 hours before they can have the first conversation of what happened.
Yeah.
About all they can say is, are you okay? We can get you, medical attention if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But yet myself with, what's supposed to be less training than what most police have, is immediately being questioned on, what happened.
Yeah.
And then I know they're looking for variations in my story.
Yeah.
But
so were your responses now to the police, because they were very short, which was great with the 911 operator, but were your descriptions and your elaborations back to the police, were they short and concise?
Yes.
How did you handle that?
I kept it very brief.
Yep.
I just told them, how the altercation started, how it ended, and I knew that every time I told them that, I had to tell them the exact same way, using almost the exact same verbiage every single time. I knew it was all going to come out the wash anyway between, the number of people that were there. Although at the time, I didn't even know if they even saw anything, because to me, the gun made no noise. So I'm like, are they even aware, other than the fact, as this guy was walking away, he was telling people pumping gas, I've been shot, but I knew there were cameras. This is a heavily videoed gas
sure.
station.
For sure.
Just one of those, you know what I mean? Where
Yep.
there's like a camera on every corner.
Yeah.
So I knew what I was telling the police, like, I know this is all going to be proven factual. But I also know I really shouldn't be talking right now.
Yeah.
The last cop came over and said, the last officer to come and interview me, I think they said it was at least probably number 4 to see if my story had changed once. After he was done asking me the same series of questions, he said, he looked at me, he goes, do you need medical attention or anything? And I had some pretty deep scratches on my hands and my arms, and I don't know if that was when we had the struggle for the gun, his nails digging in, or if it was when the gun discharged, that he really dug in hard with his nails, because they very deep nail marks in my hand and arm. And I was like, I remember looking at my, I was like, nothing, I don't think a couple of Band-Aids won't cover up. And I remember he looked at me and he kind of turned his head sideways and gave me a strange look. He goes, why don't we get you checked out anyway? And so they put me in the back of an ambulance. The EMS personnel, they, hooked me up to vitals to check me out. And you never want to see an EMS worker's eyes do this.
No.
When they hook up the vitals. So like I immediately knew something was wrong. My blood pressure was like 242 over 146. I have no idea what my heart rate was.
I don't know how you live.
They were like, you're like in stroke territory. So they're like, if we don't get that down, we're gonna have to take you to the hospital. And then my mind, like, again, I'm in shock, but my mind, like I'm thinking through this as I go. I'm like, hospital, police station, hospital, police station. I want to go to the hospital, right? Yeah. Like that's where I want to be. They have beds there. I could really use somewhere that's comfortable, after being in the back of a squad car. Like they have drugs. I was like, I could use about anything you got right about now. My stress level was so high. And so that's where they ended up taking me. I found out later on, the police department did actually call my wife and said, hi, ma'am, this is so-and-so police department. Your husband's been involved in a shooting and we're taking him to the hospital.
Oh, God, yeah. Put 2 and 2 together and the marbles have hit the floor.
Yes, right. So so now every time I'm late from work, my wife will say, what the last time you were late?
Oh, man.
I'm like, hon, I'm late from work every single day of my life.
Yeah.
But,
my heart rate is racing right now just by listening. I mean, trying to put myself, and I hope that everybody that watches really does try to put themselves in your shoes, because it is truly a life-altering event.
Beyond what anyone can imagine.
Beyond what you can imagine. And now we're, many years removed and still talking about getting emotional from it. And I'm over here sweating bullets right now. And
my heart rate right now is probably through the roof.
It doesn't change what has happened, and the stuff that we do with Right to Bear, it is great. But when you start talking about the individual, the person, there's always a person behind situations like this. So
I tell people, every news story you see, the tragic things have a person just like you and I on the other side of it. But I think the things on the news have gotten so bad that as a society, we've had to learn to create a disconnect or put a wall at our television set, between us and the rest of the world. Because if not, it'd be almost paralyzing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure. We've become numb to it.
Right.
And so I want to go back to now, so you go to the hospital, and I want to just hear about the rest of the story. And then I'd love to learn, after a few days had passed and obviously the case, the legal case has begun, what all had transpired, and just learn more about it. So you're on your way to the hospital.
So I'm on my way to the hospital. There's a police officer in the back of the ambulance with me, obviously, for the transport to the hospital, because again, they're still trying to gather evidence and figure out what's going on. His name was also Justin by happenstance.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. He was very stoic in the back of the ambulance. I did have some minor conversation with him, and right now in this emotional state, like I'm trying to cling on to any human being I can find that is going to be friendly and on my side. And I know the police are on my side, but I also understand too, he's being a little cold and stoic right now because it's a job.
Yeah.
I did meet him a year later. Totally different interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally different.
Wow.
you know.
Wow.
So they transport me to the hospital, still in handcuffs.
Yeah.
They get me into a wheelchair, take me into the ER, get me up on a gurney. And I think then they realized, oh, we left him cuffed.
Oh,
And they
wow.
were like, yeah, you probably didn't need to be cuffed for that long.
Yeah.
We're sorry about that. I'm like, I'm not complaining, right?
Yeah.
You know, it was fine with me. So they took him off. A detective then met me at the hospital. Shortly after that, I got my cell phone back too. And I was able to finally start making some telephone calls, like to my wife and family. And luckily, I had a large group of family and friends that were on their way to the hospital to meet me.
Great.
The detective got there before anybody else did, and he's like, look, he's like, you're not being charged with any crimes right now. He's like, we're still trying to gather evidence and figure out exactly what's going on. He's like, so you can talk to me if you want to. He's like, there's, you know, I can't press you into talking to me. He's like, but if you choose to talk to me, he says, don't lie to me.
Yeah.
He's like, we're pulling the video right now. He's like, and we're going to know if you're lying. So don't lie.
Yep.
And, again, I have nobody to go to bat for me.
Yeah.
So he also told me too, he's like, the other guy's going to live. And I remember thinking in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, thank God. Right.
Yeah.
You know, even though I'm using deadly force on someone because they gave me no other option, doesn't mean I don't want to have to cause another person's death. Had he died, I would have to live with that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to do that.
That's right.
So,
So
I don't tell the detective that, but in the back of my mind as a Christian, I'm like, okay, good. He's going to live. I'm not going to have to live with that for the rest of my life. You can talk to police that are involved in justified shootings. They'll tell you the same thing too. They end up resulting in another human being's death. They're never the same afterwards. I'm not the same even after this incident.
So when you're at the hospital now, you've spoken with numerous police, you've spoken with detective, you've ridden in the car, you spoke to the 9/11 operator. Has it crossed your mind of, oh crap, what are the legal ramifications of what just happened?
You have no idea. You have no idea.
So this is what is that maybe a big driving force behind, like, oh my gosh, my life might be over?
There were so many things running through my mind. I'm still in shock. You know, I'm thinking, you know, I've got to tell the police, you know, exactly what happened because I want them to know the truth. I want them to know I'm the victim in this scenario.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to talk to the cops. My brain's going to, you know, I can't afford a lawyer right now. You know, if this thing ends up going to court, you know, like I don't know how that's going to play out. You know, my blood pressure is still through the roof too. I remember thinking, I immediately went back to having some type of coverage, and I was like, oh, why did I cancel that now? You know, it's like you talk about one of those moments in your life where you're kicking yourself.
Yeah.
You know, this is one of those moments.
It's crazy because, you know, you even as an instructor and having been in this industry, you still never think that it's going to happen to you.
No.
You never do. You never do. And, you know, of all people, you know, you're not an overly imposing person. You're not going out of your way to get in anybody's business. You're just another law-abiding citizen doing their everyday life, going home, stopping for gas, maybe getting a Cliff Bar and heading back, you know, whatever the case might be. And you're now stuck with something that will be with you the rest of your life.
Yeah. And
it's heavy, and years later it's emotional. What are some things that you've learned in the aftermath of that maybe, you know, you've taught these classes and you've tried to educate people, you know, theoretically, now you've lived it. What are some things that you take away now being like, wow, that I should maybe focus on when I'm teaching now this aspect or et cetera. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So as a victim of a violent crime, you know, and you can see other people, they do this too. Some people decide they want to start a charity.
Yeah.
Because a family member was tragically killed or something like that. I believe everything in life happens for a reason, good and bad.
Yeah.
I believe God puts us, this is me personally speaking.
Yeah.
I believe God puts us through trials sometimes, and he wants us to find what his intent for good on the other side is of it, no matter how tragic it may be.
Yeah.
you can bring good out of really bad things. 9/11 is a good example, you know, with the some of the foundations that have been created around that.
Yeah.
Super tragic event, but now some of these organizations are buying homes for police officers that are killed in line of duty, or firefighters that are killed in line of duty.
For sure.
So, my mind, obviously I'm replaying everything dozens of times. Could I have done things differently? Could I have changed small moments? And like, I've never been able to come up with anything that I could have changed.
Yeah.
I also wanted to go back in time to before it happened, right? Like I just wanted my life to go back to the way it was before, but I knew I'd opened a door that I was never going to be able to go back through.
Yeah.
I believe God put me through this. You know, I was in the other instructors that I teach with, you know, they'll say, you know, it's absolute perfect example of exactly, if everything could happen perfectly, even though this is really bad, it would happen that way. It's on video. I got witnesses, everything else. So I believe the way I can turn this emotionally bad thing in my life is to turn it into lemonade by sharing my story with others.
Yeah.
So that other people hopefully won't have to go through the same events that I had to go through of feeling alone, you know.
Yeah. What
afterwards.
advice would you give to someone that whether they you know, are in one of your courses, having gone through it, or maybe somebody goes through something last week and now they're in one of your courses? What are some advice you would share?
Some of the things I tell them is like, you know, I think the average retainer for a good lawyer who's involved in the firearm industry is around 70 grand.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to fork that out of pocket before they'll even pick up the phone pretty much. And as soon as they pick up the phone with you, the clock starts running and running into that.
Yeah.
And then going over that. I don't have that kind of money. The post-event, that was one of the things I was terrified about.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to go back inside of a hole and kind of hide from the world. You know, I didn't want to be, you know, in this.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is I don't want to make this a sales pitch. I want you to I mean, $70,000, and that's true, because I know in South Carolina the numbers between 55 and 65 are pretty common. That's $65,000. Where if without any type of protection, they can seize assets for it, because you either do that or you get a public defender who is not going to be qualified. Because do you want to spend a decade or 20 years or whatever the case might be, you know, in jail for something that you had a justified shoot? I think that might be one of the number one things I'm taking from our conversation right now is, even in a justified shoot, your blood pressure almost puts you into stroke. There's no telling what your wife is going through. You now have a life experience that is literally changed the scope of your life, and it was 100% justified in self-defense, and you are a law-abiding citizen carrying where you were allowed to, and yet there is tremendous aftermath. It's like the images in my mind, what I'm trying to put to like a physical matter of like the path of a tornado. It just flattens everything.
I wish nothing more than to be able to never have to tell the story ever again.
Yeah.
You know, but when I start the legal portion of the class with my students, I always lead with this story.
Yeah.
You know, and there's been times where you have people that are like halfway asleep in your class, and you gain full attention very, very quickly when I start down this path. So I share it and I rehash it every single time I teach, you know.
Yeah,
and
you have to.
When you guys ask me to, you know, I'll be completely honest, you know, I went back to my wife and, you know, I talked to her for a moment and I was like, you know, I don't know if I want to do this.
Yeah.
You know, she's obviously supportive of me and what I decide. And, you know, like we suspended all of our social media accounts after the event and everything just to try to crawl back into a hole.
Yep.
You know, I was terrified that I'm going to be plastered all over the news, kind of Kyle Rittenhouse style.
Yeah.
You know,
Jeez,
and
man.
be demonized for something I was completely justified. And even though the cops are telling me you were totally justified, I know there's another side that's fighting against me too.
Yeah, absolutely. So what were some of the legal aspects that came after? So you've spoken with the detective. Did you end up hiring an attorney? What happened?
I was, again, I truly believe God had his hand of protection on me and put me through this for a reason. I talked to the detective at the hospital. The strange thing was they just left the hospital. They didn't tell me goodbye or like, we'll talk to you later or anything like that. Obviously, they had my info. The detective said, he's like, I'll be in touch with you this week, but they never said, you're released. So eventually my doctor's like, I'm ready to discharge you. And I'm like, can I go home? And he's like, I'm ready to discharge you. So, here we go.
And so you just go home and you show up, you're like,
I walked out the door, I just remember felt like I was walking. I don't know what they gave me for drugs intravenously. I just felt like I was walking on my kneecaps. I felt like I was like 4 feet tall. It's the most bizarre feeling in the world. So I don't know what they gave me, but it worked. The doctor was like, do you want anything to take home? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'll take anything you got right now.
Yeah.
Right? So, stayed in touch with the detective that following week.
Yeah.
He called me. He's like, from everything we're able to gather, he's like, it looks like a good, completely justified. He's like, actually, he said one of the most justified self-defense shootings like I've ever seen in all my years of law enforcement. He's like, but obviously we have to take this to the DA, and they're going to have the final say on whether or not any charges are filed against either party. So it's not just me, but it's also the other guy.
Yeah.
And so probably about a week or so after that, so maybe about a week and a half total have gone by now. The detective called me one morning. He goes, yep. He's like, I'm, meeting with 2 assistant DAs later this afternoon. He kind of rehashed the thing about, we're not looking for any charges to be pressed or anything as far as the police are concerned. But obviously the DA has the final say.
Yeah.
He called me later that afternoon after meeting with the DA, and he's like, 2 assistant DAs and I sat down in a meeting room. He's like, we watched the video one time. And he's like, that's it. Closed book, over, done with. That's it.
Wow.
I was done.
Wow.
I never stepped foot in a police station. I never stepped foot in a courtroom. I never did any of that.
Wow.
And that's why I say, like, I truly believe God had a reason for me to go through this and use it, is that he truly had his hand of protection on me, even though he allowed me to go through something that was really life-altering.
A few more questions that I want to poke at you.
But I was terrified.
Yes.
I was going to need.
I was going to say, case happened.
Not to dismiss the fear of the moment of going through that.
What happens? What do you believe that if you would have had, because you're currently a member of Right to Bear, do you believe if you had Right to Bear at that moment with the attorney answered hotline and the unlimited criminal and civil defense protection that is provided to you, would you have felt more comfortable?
1,000 times.
1,000 times better.
1,000 times.
We just spoke with Kristen Keller, our lead program attorney, and she's first class, by the way. And so is the rest of our attorney network. But every time I speak with her and we have an incident, whether it's with a firearm or not, my heart always kind of hits the floor a little bit, because it's scary. And now more than ever, when she'll send in a message and say, hey, do you have 5 minutes? We had a call. It makes you jump. And then now when you put the actual individual and their spirit behind something like that, it's shocking to me. Absolutely crazy. And in your experience in this industry, which is crazy that you're in the industry and had it. And I mean, you look at the education of what it prevented, right? That's why we preach to go and visit and train with individuals and take classes with people like yourself. Doesn't always happen that way. DAs are not always as friendly.
No, they're not. And our local DA is not that super friendly towards our industry. And, so obviously, the fear in my mind goes there too. The police and us are on the same side, right?
Yep.
They want to put bad guys in prison. We want bad guys to go to prison. We have that even playing field with them. In those moments, they're not your friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I knew when I was talking to them after the event, like, they're not my friend right now.
Yeah.
I tell my students, it's almost hazardous for you to not have something.
Yeah.
You need to have something.
Yeah.
This is a truthful statement.
Yeah. please.
having been in the industry for a very long time, I remember when Right to Bear first came out. I looked at their product because, I had canceled the other company. So it's not like I was opposed to ever having it again. It's just a budget thing. The cost of the other one was, I thought, a little too high.
Yeah.
When Right to Bear first came out, I was like, that product looks horrible. Right to Bear did a complete re-innovation of themselves.
Yep.
And I tell my students that too, following the industry, I see these things when they come on and they change, so I'm very versed in the other things that are out there.
Yeah. That's right. So just to talk on that change is we were offering a full insurance-based product that was limiting. And we knew that we needed to make a change, and we did about 6 months in, and changed to the association model that offered other benefits other than just the legal defense. But, the legal defense being a big part of our association offering and having the attorneys more or less right there on our retainer for our members. And that's what helped get a lot of, I'd like to say that we're one of the fastest growing companies in this space, maybe even the fastest growing. And it's because we heard not stories exactly like yours, but what do people need? Frank and I we're two Americans that believe in the right of self-defense. You take the politics out of it.
Amen.
And if somebody's attacking me, family, 7-month-old daughter, it doesn't matter.
There's no question in my mind.
No question.
You know what I mean? Like even though I never want to have to cause another person's death, there's no question in my mind because you've given me no other option than to take your life. And if it's between you, myself, my daughter, my wife, family member, close friend of mine, that's not a hard decision for me.
No.
I'll live with the consequences afterwards.
Yep.
But the consequences afterwards, the psychological trauma, I'm very blessed too. I have a great, support group at church. I work in this industry. So, I have very supportive group of people that understand. I've never been in the military. I've never been a cop. So I tell my class, I'm the average guy.
Yeah.
Never thinking it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to give Right to Bear a little plug here, and that was another reason why we added the 40 sessions of psychological support. So if you were a member at that time and you wanted to have that access, that is a resource.
I would have done it.
You would have done it, and it's a resource that is already included in our base plan, and it's not a fluff and stuff add-on. Like this is something people need, and that's not exactly the cheapest thing in the world either.
No, none of this stuff is cheap, you know. But when I found out Right to Bear had signed the local attorney to my area, the local attorney in my area is someone I've known for a long time because they're industry related and I'm industry related to the point where we actually are on each other's cell phones. We text each other. So when I found out it was this guy, I know this guy's law history.
Yeah,
I'm like,
thumbs up.
That's the guy I want going to bat for me. And if I knew I had him in that moment when I was in the back of that squad car, I would have called 911 and said, got to go, click, turn around, called Right to Bear, knowing that person's en route now. I'd been like, everything's going to be all right.
Yeah,
everything's going to be all right.
Wow, well said. I appreciate you saying that. And I couldn't agree more. And that was why we structured it that way. And that's what we preach. And I know you preach in your classes that tell them the bare minimum, get Right to Bear on the phone and get your attorney speaking to you right then and there. We've had cases where when the police came, we've had our attorney on the phone en route with the member speaking to the officer.
Police. Yep. Yeah.
And that peace of mind tied with the defense cost and taking that fear away from, like you said, you're the average guy.
This guy's not cheap either, I know.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Right. This guy's not cheap either.
No,
yeah, that's okay. That's what I want. I don't want the public defender. I want somebody like that. You gave an idea about the psychological thing too, and so people understand, exactly how bad it is. I'd been recently diagnosed as a diabetic about 5 months prior to this event.
Yeah.
35 years old, perfectly healthy, or at least I thought I was. And my wife's like, you're losing like way too much weight. It's abnormal because I'm eating everything in sight. And my doctor's like, you're diabetic. Started treating it very aggressively, which is good, right? Or at least I thought it was good. gave myself a form of diabetic neuropathy that I still have to this day. But around the time of December of that year, and going into January, February, and the event happened in March, I was in an excruciating, like to the point where my wife was having to help me walk across the parking lot. You've seen me walk around. Do I look like the type of person that needs help walking across the parking lot? But it was that bad. The event occurred, and then that following week, I had zero pain. My brain was so stressed out over the event. I felt emotionally, and not having anybody to come to bat for me, I felt like a towel that had just been wrung up so tight. And but I thought it was weird that I had this mind disconnect that I don't hurt anymore, which was great.
Yeah.
You know, in one way, you know, bad in another way.
Yeah.
It did come back post the event, but never like it was prior.
Wow. Yeah, the human body is an insane thing. It's crazy. Man, I'm in shock right now. Obviously, not to the extent of what you were. Is there anything that you'd like to kind of share, kind of in closing, as we wrap up and you know, finish up?
Yeah, I guess it's that I'm not a tough guy. I'm not. Never have been. I'm the softie.
Yeah.
I'm just a soft guy. I have had a lot of people, customers, friends in the industry and stuff like that. A lot of people think they're tough enough to go through this, and they don't have any idea what it's really going to be like, you know. And I tell my students, you need to have an advocate, you know. And cost of things now, right? And here in 2024, I can't go to McDonald's for under $20 right now if I'm feeding my wife and I, right?
Yep.
It's gonna be like $19.95 or something like that.
Easily.
Sorry, you know, the cost of everything has gone up. If I can go to McDonald's, why in the world would I not have something like Right to Bear?
Yeah.
Why not?
I agree.
That makes absolutely zero sense. You're going to go spend all this money on some people spend thousands of dollars on a handgun. You know, even an average Glock is going to run you between $500 and $600,
Easy,
right?
Yeah.
You know, you go up to HK, now you're dealing $800, $850, you know, something like that, right?
It's expensive.
So you're willing to spend that type of money. How many years of coverage you could have bought for that, right? And you're buying this obviously with the intent of, I may need this one day to defend myself, but you're not adding in to the equation of the reality of what actually happens after an event like that. And I try to tell my students, like, this is what really happens, right? As an instructor, I knew what was getting ready to happen, so I was at least somewhat mentally prepared. The average person is not. You know, wait till you got a news crew or something like that sitting in your front lawn and starting to videotape, right?
Happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
I was very blessed. My name is never mentioned in the news. Used in the news. I remember seeing the story that night, but it doesn't meet their narrative. So after that night, the media was just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was great for me, right? Because that's what I wanted. So no complaints here. I don't understand why people would.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially with the cost of things now in 2024. You can't say, oh, that's too expensive. I can't work that in my monthly budget. You're paying more for Netflix right now.
Easily.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so it makes no sense. You're willing to pay for Netflix, but something that can put you into financial ruin?
Yes.
You know, you got to take out another mortgage on your home to pay just to bail you out of jail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
You know, I do not want to be in prison. I told you I'm a softie. I wouldn't last a single moment in prison, right? You know, I already know what that tastes like for being in the back of a squad car with the doors locked. I can't get out of here and I'm in handcuffs. You feel like a caged animal. As a good person, you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people would.
Yeah, I don't either. And I wish more than anything that we'd had been protecting you, but I'm proud to say that we are now. And I can honestly say on behalf of the leadership team at Right to Bear, we could be more grateful for you to come and talk about that story. And then, you know, give us a shameless plug too. We take pride in what we've put together. We believe that we offer the best that you can find out there. But we agree. We say this all the time, that you have to have something. And we stand by that. And I know that might not sound like a great business thing to say, but you have to have some type of protection. We respect all of our competitors. They really paved the road for us, and we took a combination of what everybody did, and we believe we put the best package together for people. But, you have to have this. And I mean, I tell my friends and family this all the time, that listen, you think that what we're doing is specifically for gun or people with a CWP or a concealed weapon permit or whatever the case might be. And it's not. It's for every, we cover whether you would have used your firearm, or you would have turned and clocked them with your elbow, or say there was something hanging, right? We are there. We not only from just a defense, but that's who we are. You know, we're just your average everyday people that we saw a void in this country of who is going to be there when people have to defend themselves. And the idea was birthed back in 2020 because it was chaos here. And that was when the wheels started turning. We said, you know what? There's an avenue for Right to Bear to play a big picture, not only from maybe an individual here or there, but really from a large scales. How can we really get hundreds of thousands and one day millions of people with peace of mind that will keep people from, like you, from virtually almost dying in the back of an ambulance or having a stroke. And then the legal protection, 6 figures easy, it'll run you up and it'll run you into the ground. And that's the goal and the motto that we have. And our mission is to make sure that the people know that we care about them. We serve them, and we're here for them.
I'm going to close with something too.
Please.
Having been involved in the industry now for 17 years, so I'm not some new guy in the industry. I've been around the block a long time. I've actually been directly involved in a business way with everybody that's out there. Right to Bear, the other players on the market. I'm not going to say the names because I don't think it's appropriate.
Great.
Right to Bear, and I say this whole honesty. When I came here today, like I said, I was on the fence of whether or not I even wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Number one, it's emotional. Number two, I value my privacy. But the reason why I did it is I believe I can help other people with my story. I've seen all the other guys. Right to Bear has by far the most superior product I've ever seen when it comes to this type of protection. And the cool thing I've seen with Right to Bear is that when I first started getting to know you guys, there were some questions that I was like, hey, do you guys do this? And at the time, the representative I'm talking with, they're like, no, I don't think we do, but let me look into that. And the next thing I know, now Right to Bear is covering it. So it's like you guys modify your program to benefit us as gun owners and give us the most amount of protection we can possibly have.
Yep.
That's impressive to me.
Thank
The
you.
other guys out there aren't going to budge from, either you like it or you don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not going to go out of their way to make sure people are more covered. If they see a deficiency in the product that they have, Right to Bear is like, let's fill that deficiency.
Yeah.
Let's solve that problem.
There's a difference between a business model and a true mission, core values, and a passion. And when it's a passion, it outweighs maybe the cost-benefit analysis because there's raw human emotion involved.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we did it, seriously. Yeah. And thanks again, man. This is fantastic.
Perry, thank you very much.
Appreciate you driving here and meeting me. And man, I'm looking forward to getting this out to the masses. So until next time, everyone, thank you.